Coming to paperback and e-readers this Black Friday, E-Steam Ascension, The Devilish Dealer reaches a turning point in our life in this powerful E-Steam series story at E-Steam Ascension at online bookstores this Black Friday. One of my viewers who has been working on his own book asked me for some tips and advice on getting started in publishing books. And in this video, I'm going to explain some of the things I do to get a book published and sold on retail websites like Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and Smashwords. And there are numerous platforms an author can use towards publishing their own books these days. Some of these platforms offer paperbacks, other ones offer ebooks, and some of them offer paperbacks and ebooks. I like to use a variety of platforms so that I can reach the largest audience. And what I will do is I will publish a paperback on CreateSpace and then publish an ebook on Kindle, and then I will take another ebook and I will put it on Smashwords so I can reach numerous retailers like the iBookstore and many other foreign platforms that Amazon and Barnes & Noble don't access. And I also publish ebooks on Barnes & Noble's Nook. Now, Barnes & Noble also offers paperbacks, but the formatting process is a little bit more challenging than the one on CreateSpace. And before you go out here and publish a book, you have to learn all about what you need to format an ebook or a paperback. And in order to do that, you really need to have a good PC or a Macintosh computer. And with the Mac, it's a little easier because with Preview, you can make PDFs and you can also make PostScripts, so you don't need separate software. But with a PC, you're going to need Adobe Acrobat to make PDFs if you want to do paperbacks. However, if you're doing ebooks, all you need is Microsoft Word to make your ebooks. That's all you really need to do for ebooks is have Microsoft Word, because once you have formatted the book, you can just upload it from the Word file to Kindle or Nook. But Smashwords, on the other hand, they have formatting rules, so you have to be very careful with that. And you have to format it in a DOC or a doc document, not a docx document that Microsoft Office and Word make for 2007 and on. So there are different formatting rules for different platforms, and you have to have the software in order to make sure that you can make your PDFs for paperbacks correct. And you want to make sure that you have the right Word files formatted properly, or else it's just not going to get the full distribution on a platform like Smashwords. Now, the software you're going to need for publishing a book, you're going to need three programs actually. You're going to need Microsoft Word for laying out your book and laying out your text in the way you want it formatted so that it meets a standard. You're going to need Adobe Acrobat if you're making a paperback to create PDFs. And if you want to do covers, you're going to need either Adobe Photoshop or you're going to need Adobe Photoshop Elements, because with that software, you can then format your cover to meet the templates for the paperback if you're using CreateSpace or the Barnes & Noble paperback platform. And if you do your own art or you use photographs, like I have for several books, you're going to need to use that software to create your covers. So you need to have a suite of software to get started towards publishing. And once you get this software, you'll be set up with the tools to publish your own books. You also need a very good broadband internet connection, because if you have a slow one, what's going to happen is the file may get corrupted or the file may wind up getting lost. And I've had that happen on several books that I worked on, and I had to really upload them all over again, or in some cases they would get uploaded to CreateSpace and there would be issues with them because of an internet connection problem. So you really need to have a good internet connection in order to publish any book. So those are the core tools that you're going to need. And once you have your tools, you then have to go and focus on how you want this book laid out. I usually lay out my books like this. I usually lay out my ebooks with the title page and then the acknowledgments in certain cases, depending on what book it is, and then we go right into the ebook and it's full, text matter, and then we have the back matter of the ebook where I put my bio and all the other books I have written, and then my social media, so that people who, if they want to contact me about the book, can contact me about the book. And I also have links to my blog and my other and things like my LinkedIn for professional connections, and that's what I put in laying out an ebook. Now, for a paperback, I do things a little differently because paperbacks have to meet a certain standard and they have to be formatted a certain way if they want to be approved by CreateSpace. Now, when it comes down to paperbacks, they have to have three things. They have to have a front matter, they have to have a text, and then they have to have a back matter. And if they don't have these three elements, they're going to be rejected, because if you do not have the front matter with the correct ISBN, CreateSpace will not approve your book for going to the next process where you approve the book for sale. So you have to make sure that your front matter is correct. And your front matter starts out with a title page, then a blank page, then the author page, then the page with the legal stuff on it, as I call it. And on that page, that's where you have the ISBN, that's where you have the copyright, which tells you who owns the copyright, the year of copyright, and all the other legal information. And then you have a couple more pages where you have the dedication and the acknowledgments, and then after that you lead into the text page. So the front matter is usually 8 pages, and usually that's how the book starts. So when you have a book, it's not just going into page 1, it's the front matter, and then you go into the text, which is usually page 9, and then after the book ends, you have the back matter, and in the back matter, that's where I usually put ads for other books. So that's how you lay out a paperback for print on demand. And once you have done the page layouts for your paperback and your ebook, what happens is after that, you have to go to the PDF process. And the PDF process is where you take your your manuscript and you're formatting it for the book itself. And what you're going to do there is you have to decide what font you want to use, how you want the page to be laid out. Do you want the page to be formatted where everything is usually justified, or do you want a ragged sign? But usually the justified makes a nice professional look on a paperback. So you really want to use justified when you're doing formatting for a paperback. But for an ebook, you really should just leave it where it's uneven, because what happens is that different things like cell phones and iPads are going to format it automatically, so you don't really need to do too much with an ebook. Ebooks automatically format on a Nook page or a iPad or a Kindle, so you don't have to do much formatting there except just making sure that all the chapters are laid out properly, that that page has a title page, and that you have a copyright on that title page, and then the text, and then the back matter. Ebooks are a little easier than paperbacks because you don't have to do as much formatting, and you can just upload them to with a Microsoft Word file. But when it comes down to paperbacks, there are rules, there are guidelines, and you have to understand what the guidelines are when you're formatting. Usually when I'm doing publishing, I'm working on paperbacks and ebooks simultaneously, because I look to launch both of them on the same day so that the customer can buy both the same day. Some books I don't do it that way. Some books I will launch the paperback earlier so that the paperback is out a couple days early, so people can order the paperback and then have it later on when the ebook is coming out. So I try to give customers options when they go out here and buy books. Moreover, I also try to make sure that the book is on multiple platforms, because when it comes down to publishing books, you really want to have your book on as many platforms as possible. I usually start with the Kindle and CreateSpace as the base platform, but then I also use Smashwords as well. And one of the reasons why I use Smashwords is because Smashwords has the best audience for ebooks. And when it comes down to ebooks, Smashwords, usually the readers are more open to ebooks, they're more friendlier to ebooks, and they're willing to share ebooks more regularly. So I've gotten and built a strong audience on Smashwords because most of the audience there is way more receptive to indie authors and indie publishers than they are on other platforms. When it comes down to Amazon's Kindle these days, there's a lot of elitism over there. There's a lot of book snobs over there. So I use it as a primary for paperbacks, but I usually, if it's the one that sells usually more than other ones, but I usually use it just to get to the marketplace of Amazon. But Smashwords is where you want to build an audience because that's where people are more open to ebooks and more receptive to ebooks. But on Kindle, they tend to be a bit more snobbish than Smashwords. Now Barnes and Noble, they're there, but I usually don't get much traction there. But usually I get most of my traction and build my audience on Smashwords. And Smashwords offers you a lot of benefits. One of the things they offer as a benefit is that they pay royalties through PayPal, not a bank account. The one thing you need with Kindle and Barnes and Noble and CreateSpace is you're going to need a bank account. But with Smashwords, you can have a PayPal account and you'll get royalties there. And you also get better distribution with Smashwords because Smashwords not only distributes to Barnes and Noble, it also distributes to the iBookstore. It distributes to Scribd. It distributes to numerous platforms like Oyster and many other services. And because they distribute to almost about 30, 40 services, you have access to almost the whole World Wide Web all over the world. So putting an ebook on Smashwords will really help it find an audience because when you put a book there, it's everywhere. But when you put a book on Kindle, it's just on Amazon.com. Or if you put a book on Barnes & Noble's Nook or as an ebook, it's only on BarnesandNoble.com. Now, CreateSpace is a little different because CreateSpace, you can take a paperback and it'll be from an Amazon company, but it will be distributed all over the world. So when you take a paperback and put it on CreateSpace, it's practically everywhere. And that's one of the advantages of creating paperbacks through CreateSpace and using Kindle as one platform for just getting ebooks to Kindle, and then using the ebook platform for Barnes Noble to the Nook, and using Smashwords to go all over the world. If you use all three of those combined, you will have access to the whole world on the World Wide Web. Now, when it comes down to designing books, that's something that you have to decide what you want to do. You have to decide what fonts you want to use and how you want your pages laid out. Because when it comes down to paperbacks, you have to know what certain fonts are and how certain fonts are seen by the reader. I usually use Book Antiqua these days because Book Antiqua is easier for people to read, and I oftentimes put space between things because I understand that certain people have literacy issues and sometimes they want to put a finger under the text so they can get a sense of how it reads. So I usually use those type of formatting things on paperbacks to make them easier for readers to read, and I often use 12-point font because it's easier to read. It may make a book more expensive if you have a larger book, but these are things that I do to improve the reading experience. And the reading experience is something you really want to think about as it relates to a paperback. Now on the Kindle, the device will do the formatting, but on a paperback you have a hard book and you really have to think about the formatting, because if the reader has a hard time reading your book on a preview, or if they have a hard time reading your book when they get it in their hands, then you're going to have a bad reputation, because all it takes is a book with a 10-point font or an 8-point font to turn somebody off, because those type of fonts, they become hard to read and it becomes a real frustrating reading experience. Usually I go with a 12-point font, or if I have a cost issue, I'll bring it down to 11, but I don't go any lower than that because I do not want to impede the customer's reading experience. The customer's reading experience is a very important thing, and it's something you really need to think about when you're launching a title. Now, some of those things that will limit you are cost, because when it comes down to a paperback, paperbacks cost money, and every page you put in there is like 0.2 cents per page. So you have to think about how many pages you want this book to be and factor in those costs. And that's one of the things I learned to do early on when I was publishing my first book with the SJS Direct Imprint, All About Maryland. I had to think about the cost. And I also had to think about it really with books like that were larger, like All About Nikki's Fabulous First Season and The Temptation of John Haynes. Both of those books were over 400 pages or close to 400 pages. And once you get into the 400 page range, that's when the price gets really tricky because there is a certain price point that people are just not going to pay for a paperback. And once you start getting into the $20 price range, that's when people start hesitating about buying paperbacks. So I have to keep it at about $18 in order to get a profit and also to be able to pay the printing cost and Amazon's deduction from the whole overall price. And that's something you also have to factor in when you're doing a paperback. And with ebooks, you really don't have to factor in too much as it relates to cost, but you really have to think about access because if you put a price that's too high on an ebook, what will happen is that people won't buy the ebook. Ebooks usually I try to price them to a point where they're at a level where it's like way cheaper than the paperback, so people have an option. And if they want to try it, they don't feel like they've lost too much money because as an indie writer, you are coming in as someone who's not a trade published author. You're coming in as an indie writer, so you have to price your book to give people an option to try this book and see what it is. So I usually price novels at $3.99 and I price nonfiction a little higher if I've done a lot of research on it, like a book like Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. That book took a lot of research to do, so I priced that book a little higher at $5.99 because of all the work that went into it. And books like Stop Simpin', I usually, because they're shorter, or ISIS series book, I will price them at $2.99 because they're smaller works. But I always price them in a way that makes the ebook affordable to the customer and gives them an incentive to go out here and buy the ebook. I really want them to try the ebooks in most cases because I believe if they try one ebook, they'll go out here and try other ebooks. So that's one of the things I try to do is I keep the price points really low on ebooks, but I try to keep them as competitive also on paperbacks. Now paperbacks usually, again, it's page counts that lead to the higher prices. So a book like Spellbound, Temptation of John Haynes, All About Nikki, in some cases the price is going to be a little higher because of the page count, because page counts can lead to higher prices in a lot of cases, and that's the reason why those books are costing what they are, because Amazon has a minimum price rate for them, and then I have to double that if I hope to make any sort of profit on the book that is printed. So that's something you also have to factor in. Another thing you have to factor in is working on the spelling, punctuation, and grammar. That also goes into the formatting of a book. When you're formatting a book, you really need to focus on the spelling, punctuation, and grammar because people will complain about these things, and if they put that in a review, it's going to possibly cost you sales. So you really want to focus on that, and if possible, you want to try to find yourself a freelance editor to work on that. Usually, because I've been out of work for so long, I've been doing the editing primarily on books these days, and my process for that is I will do the manuscript, then I will change it into a new file, and then I will create a PDF and read that. And then once I think I've got the PDF to a certain standard, I will upload it to CreateSpace in a semi-final format, order a printed proof, read that over, and then make the corrections there, then upload a final proof, and then put the book up for sale. That's usually the process I use for paperbacks, and I also use it for ebooks as well. And usually I'm working on 3 scripts at one time. I'm usually working on the paperback version, the Kindle version, and the Smashwords version at the same time. So I'm usually working on 3 versions of one book at the same time. And usually I'm doing this in the time span of usually about 6 months to a year. So the time frame you take from manuscript to formatted text to final product usually takes from 6 months to a year. Usually it takes that long to get a book ready for the marketplace. And it usually takes me time to write the manuscript, then edit the manuscript, then format the manuscript, then upload the manuscript, then get work with the proofs, and then I have to start really working on the marketing plan once I have started working on the final edits. Usually I start my marketing plan for a book 90 days before its release or 60 days before its release. I remember with Spellbound, I started the promotion campaign about 90 days before I was going to release the book in Halloween. And that's when I started doing things like teaser ads and teaser promos for the book, letting people know that the book is coming, letting people know that the book, what day the book is going to come out, and talking about different things as related to the book. Another thing I also do with the marketing campaign for books is, in addition to ads, I also write blogs on the subjects as related to the book. Now, for Spellbound, I wrote several blogs about the goth subculture, and for several videos I did, I talked about things as related to the goth subculture, and I also talked about things as related to one of the other aspects of the book, which was the tragic mulatto, and I also talked about the black girl next door. And each of these subjects related to the book, and they related to content in the book. And the reason why I did that was to get people interested in the book and the content of the book. The whole point of those videos was to get people talking about the subject matter and to get them to take a look at the book. All of these things are done towards the promotion stage, and the promotion stage is a lot of work, just as much work as it is for the creative stage. The creative stage is a lot of technical labor, but the marketing stage, that's the real challenge, because that's when you have to reach out to the audience. That's when you have to let the audience know about what the book is about, how it relates to them, and most importantly, why they should buy it and why they should care to buy it. So those are things I have to do in order to market a book to the customers. And that, again, is part of the final phase, which usually takes about 90 days for me to lay out that promotion campaign, where you'll get that first teaser ad, then you'll get blogs, then you'll get then you'll get videos, and then you'll get the launch date, and then you'll get me going on a full social media promotion campaign. And with the first day of the launch, usually what I do is I go to Facebook and let people know that the book is available. I go to Twitter and I let people know that the book is available. I go on my blog and I post it to my blog, letting people know that the book is available, and to my Tumblr and let people know that the book is available. And in addition to that, what I do is I market with Facebook groups. And Facebook groups, there are numerous, almost hundreds of them, which are all book related. And you can go to those Facebook groups and you can go market your book there, posting a link. And usually I post a teaser thing on there to get people's attention. And that's also led to sales. If you go to different Facebook groups that deal with books, that will also lead to sales, and it will get you an audience. Now, one of the things that you can do when you have multiple books is you can offer free books. And the free books, again, this is like a free sample. It lets the customer know what type of books you write, what type of stories you're telling. And once they've read the free book, what they will do is, in some cases, they'll go out and buy more books. Usually, I do this with certain books, like the ISIS series books or the E-Steam series books. I'll offer a free ebook on Smashwords, and that will allow other books to be sold. And when you do this with books and they're tied to a series, what that does is somebody reads one book in the series and then they go out and buy other books in the series. For example, somebody can go out here and they'll pick up ISIS Samurai Goddess, like it so much, and then they'll go buy other books in the ISIS series. I've had some people, after reading one ISIS series book, go out and buy the entire ISIS series, and I've had some people go out and buy the entire SJS Direct universe in ebook form. Just buy all the books because they've read one book, they liked it, now they want to read the rest of the books. That happens sometimes. And in other cases, it just leads to somebody buying one or two books and then just moving on, but that's just part of the sales game. I've also had this happen with the Spinsterella trilogy. People will buy one book, or they will get one book for free and then buy the other books. So one book will sell another book, and this has also happened with the Simp trilogy. With the Simp trilogy and the Simp series, somebody will read a Stop Simpin' and then go on to buy Manginas, Stop Simping in the Workplace, and Misadventures of Captain Staplehold. They will buy all those books because they read one book that they liked and then go on to buy the series. So it always pays, especially with ebooks, to tie books together because one book allows another book to be sold, and if you have every story laid out properly, you're going to get more customers. That's why it's important to make sure you have a compelling cover and your page is laid out with good spelling, good grammar, good sentence structure. All of these things will lead to you getting more sales once you've gotten your book published. And you have to promote all the time. This is why I'm always on Facebook promoting almost every day, and I'm posting ads every day because I want customers to know that the product is there. I want them to know the product is available, and I want them to know that the product is of top quality. So when somebody sees a quality ad, or they see, free books that have good formatting, that's what leads them to give an incentive to go out here and buy more books. So I always make sure that SJS Direct books meet a high quality standard from the beginning. So when I put a book out here, whether it be a paperback or an ebook, it's gone through a long, lengthy process, and I always make sure that it's of the highest quality because you only get one chance at making a first impression on a reader, and you want to make the best impression on the reader when they take that first look on the Look Inside on Amazon, or they download a preview on Smashwords, or they look at a preview on the Nook. So you really want to make sure that you make that strong first impression with quality covers, good formatting, and you want to make sure that the words on the page that you write are the best they can be, because a really great story can get a sale faster if you have high quality formatting versus a really good story that has poor formatting. A story with poor formatting and bad grammar, that's going to get bad word of mouth, and you really want to do things that facilitate getting really good word of mouth from day one, because word of mouth is primarily how books and ebooks are sold, and you want to make sure that your books meet the highest quality possible and meet the highest standard possible. I've had to deal with a lot of roadblocks and bumps along the way, learning the publishing process digitally, and I've made numerous mistakes back in the day. I remember 7-8 years ago, I used to have typos and errors in books, and these days I've worked on that to the point where there are literally next to no errors in books these days, and the few that are there are barely noticeable. And I've also worked on things like covers, because I used to draw my own covers, but now I'm trying to work towards creating relationships with different artists so that I can have quality art on the covers and I can make quality images that get people's attention as quickly as possible, so that when they take a look at this book, they don't see it as, oh, that's just some self-published book. They look at it and look at it on the same level as a trade paperback from a trade publishing house. And I've had people take a look at my work and say it looks just like a book from a trade publishing house in terms of quality, the way the pages are laid out, the way the pages are designed, the way the cover is these days, that the quality level has increased. And when you come out here and you publish a book, you really want to make sure you have the highest quality possible so that you can make that powerful first impression on the reader. And then what you can do is, after you've made that first impression, they can look at that first page, see what they like, and then go out here and then have a positive reflection of you, positive image of you, and then feel comfortable about buying your books in the future. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct titles, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, the legendary Mad Matilda. Get the conclusion to the Spinsterella trilogy at online booksellers today.